Well, let's keep this going. Since we're talking about GOP crime, let's talk about the GOP crime wave continuing. Just like the folks who noted that racists tend to join the GOP because that's where you can be a racist and get away with it. Similarly, criminals seem to be attracted to this party because a lot of the time, that's where you can go to do crime. That's where you can be a criminal and get away with it. There's a couple of lesser known folks, but not unknown. One of them's George Santos, that recently have had more of. Sorry, I gotta be cool for this. They have had more of their criminal dealings come to light, and it's just been a hot mess. Let's look at TYT, and I believe I'm right this time. Midas Touch talking about it. God, I hope I'm right.
This is Michael Popak, Legal AF, with another hot take.
All right.
Well, George Santos loves the movies, and one movie he probably loves the best is Emily the Criminal, that movie about skimming credit cards and creating fake credit cards.
John, Patrick, Catherine, everybody in the comments, let me know. Have you heard of Emily the Criminal? I have not even heard of that movie, and I consider myself somewhat of an aficionado. Not really, but Michael Popak's adorable. Let me just say that for the record. He's convinced everybody knows exactly what he's talking about when he mentions Emily the Criminal. It's really sweet, and I adore Michael Popak.
And using them as part of a theft ring, because according to a new sworn letter by a Brazilian confessed thief who was caught in 2017 skimming credit cards from ATM machines using devices like skimmers that you actually insert into the machine and little pinhole cameras in order to pick up people's passwords and pins. The mastermind of that criminal scheme that spanned the United States all the way down to Brazil was one George Santos, or as he was known then, Anthony DeVolder. This is not news to the Secret Service. Secret Service, when they're not busy guarding the president and elected officials, one of the things they also do is investigate financial crimes hitting the banking system around the world. And in 2017, they picked up one Gustavo Trelha of Brazil, who was according to Santos at the time, a friend of his. And they picked him up in Seattle using a skimming device at Pike's Place Market to create PIN cards, ATM cards, credit cards, and the like. He's convicted, one felony, and deported back to Brazil. In 2017, George Santos had two other connections to Trelha, a friend of his. He appeared at his bail hearing, said he was a family friend to the Kings County Superior Court Judge O'Donnell. This is all recorded on audio, which we'll play now.
Present in the courtroom is George Anthony DeVolder. He is a family friend of Mr. Trelha's. Mr. DeVolder lives in New York. I've spoken.
Just so you know, what you're hearing is incredibly common. It's incredibly common in the low-level criminal community. Your old pal Jake's been at a couple of these, standing where Anthony DeVolder was, George Santos, a.k.a., waiting on a buddy to get bailed out of the Hooskout. It is only relevant, you only have to talk to the judge if your involvement with the person needs clarification. So if you're a friend and you've put up the bail and you literally just say I'm a friend, to my knowledge, that's the last you hear about it. But this bit of clarification is quite common, particularly if they're saying, no, the person doesn't have a place to stay. They're going to stay at this person's place. This person is not an obvious relation. We need to explain that to the judge.
Spoken to him multiple times over the last couple of weeks. This is the second time that he's flown out here to assist Mr. Trelha. He has arranged an extended.
Side note, I just want to say, if you can possibly help it, never get arrested on a Friday. Never get arrested on a Friday, especially a Friday evening, because the judge won't see it till Monday. And no matter what you did, even if it's, say, you were just, let's say, drunk in public and acting a fool, you're going to be spending the weekend in an uncomfortable place, unable to contact anybody, and except, for the most part, and you won't be leaving until the judge has had time to hear you at some point on Monday. Ooh, that's a rough place to be.
Airbnb Mr. Trelha to stay at during the pendency of this case.
So what's the connection between this gentleman and your client?
They're family friends.
Family friends.
Yes, and he has been helping Mr. Trelha to arrange a place to stay here in Seattle while his case is pending.
The state hasn't shown me any evidence at this point that he is connected to anyone else in terms of running this scheme. Is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Let me hear from his friend briefly. All right, sir, tell me your name. Okay, so how do you know this man?
We're family friends. Our parents know each other from Brazil. We've known each other for a few years. Lost touch. Got back into touch back in September last year in Orlando when I was relocated from New York for work into the Orlando area.
And so what do you do for work?
I'm an aspiring politician and I work for Goldman Sachs.
You work for Goldman Sachs in New York?
There he is, on tape. Yup, he says. Lying to a judge. Lying to a judge in a criminal proceeding. Now, truth be told, I can't remember how this works exactly. I don't know if he was sworn in, but you can't lie to a judge. This guy, let's be honest, appears to be a career criminal. A low-level career criminal. Just a con man. Just stealing credit card numbers. Doing the same thing, if I recall correctly, that John Connor did in Terminator 2 with his credit card skimming. I think Connor hacked an ATM machine. But no, what this little racket was where you plug in a little case around a legitimate credit card machine, and what that does is steals credit card payment information, or rather what it does is copy that credit card information. Then it lets the transaction go through as normal. It passes it on to the genuine machine, and it provides the thief with a copy of that information. That is what Anthony DeVolder / George Santos appears to have been involved with, and appears to be lying to a judge about. In this case, he's lying about his employment, which would be the sort of employment that would make you think this person isn't involved in the crime. They make too much money already.
Okay. And so you've rented a room or something for him?
I'm just pending your decision here so I can finalize a long extended stay apartment through Airbnb or whatever website it is. Right now I'm in the by the 16th.
And you're going to do this for him if he's released?
Well, his family is the one actually sending the money over to make sure we take care of everything that he needs, and I need to comply for everything here, as far as support.
And where's his family?
His family's in Brazil.
In Brazil. What part of Brazil?
They're in Espírito Santo.
Okay. Is that where your family?
The judge here, clearly skeptical, also does not have evidence that what part of Brazil. That's sort of like when you check an ID at a bar, and then you say, okay, what year were you born? It's helpful to occasionally F with a liar this way and see if they can answer a question. So I think this is just evidence that the judge was suspicious.
Oh, no, my dad was from Rio.
And you can hear George Santos there saying to the judge, who's very quizzical about this young man in front of him who claims to be a friend of the defendant who's being set for bail, that he's also works at Goldman Sachs, which we know now is a bald-faced lie. So he lied to a judge during a bail hearing, Mr. Santos, Mr. DeValder, in aid of a friend of his who was skimming credit cards, Gustavo Trelha. Now, Mr. Santos was interviewed by the Secret Service back in 2017. They found their way to Santos, not because of the bail hearing, but because there was a FedEx package and a rental car used by Trelha with Santos's Florida address in it. Turned out Trelha had lived in Florida in that very house. And
The evidence the judge probably suspected was out there, but didn't have at the time. Hence the extra layer of questioning.
Trelha, who has now put out a sworn statement, and we'll put that up on the screen, under penalty of perjury against Mr. Santos, says the following about Santos being the mastermind of this criminal ring. He says, I saw Congressman Santos, also known as Anthony DeValder, when I saw him on television, and that's him. In 2016, I met Santos when I rented a room in his apartment in Florida. That's when I learned from him how to clone ATM and credit cards. The sworn statement goes on that Santos taught me, Trelha, how to skim card information and how to clone cards. He gave me the materials and taught me how to put skimming devices and cameras on ATM machines. He goes on to say that Santos had a warehouse in Orlando, Florida, in which he had all of the materials. This is like a scene right out of Emily the Criminal, which Santos had all the machines and parts he needed, the printers, the blank ATM and credit cards that were going to be engraved with the stolen account and personal information. Trelha goes on under oath and says, Santos gave me at his warehouse all of this material in order to conduct the skimming. Right after he gave me the card skimming and cloning machines, he taught me how to use them. He then claims that Santos flew him, Trelha, to Seattle, Washington, where he started stealing credit card information from ATM terminals, and the deal was a 50-50 split. They would use computers to download the information, and they used external hard drives to share information, and then claims at the end, this should come as no shock, that George Santos stole money from Trelha. This is all in this sworn statement, this sworn declaration dated March of 2023 that has now been provided to the Secret Service. It was written in Brazilian Portuguese. It was translated and provided to the Secret Service, who I am sure are going to reopen the investigation related to Mr. Trelha to get to the bottom of whether George Santos is the mastermind, right? Is he the Kaiser Soze, to continue the movie reference on the aftermath of the Oscars, of this?
So he saw Emily the Criminal, but he didn't see the usual suspects enough, at least, to know that it's Kaiser Soze. What is your Netflix queue like, Michael Popak? So, yeah, how much more did we need to know about George Santos? Did we really need to know anything else? No. No. This is obvious. This has been obvious. This behavior is not at all a surprise. There's nothing surprising about this because we know about all the other stuff he did. The only value this has is to highlight what an absolute clown show this is. An absolute clown show. If you are in the Republican Party right now, you need to decide, do you have ethics? Do you have principles? If you do, you cannot stand by the GOP keeping George Santos where he is. You just can't. Keeping him on, I know he willingly stepped down from committees. This guy needs to be outskis. You got to be gone. You got to get rid of him entirely. The only reason he is there is because he's a vote. He's another vote for GOP things. But there is such a thing as getting rid of a guy, as getting rid of a politician on principle. The Democratic Party has multiple times booted people out, shown them the door, because they did not adhere to basic standards of decency. Anthony Weiner, for example. Republicans, you got to start doing this because it is an embarrassment right now where we stand. That's not the only guy. That's just the last name I think you would have known. Here is yet another blatantly criminal act from somebody working for the GOP. It doesn't matter if it's Matt Gaetz. Doesn't matter if it's Joel Greenberg. Doesn't matter if it's GOP. High to low level, you can expect crime. Here's TYT talking about it.
Mr. McGrath and I spoke regularly and spoke last night in anticipation of the trial beginning today.
I've heard this a hell of a lot. I heard this when the Oxford High School shooter's parents fled. They tried to escape rather than seek the charges that Michigan Attorney Dana Nessel said they ought to face with their irresponsible behavior around their gun ownership and their son. This is an attorney having to explain why his client didn't show up for a court appearance in a criminal trial. Oh boy. Or rather, a criminal proceeding.
And I have no idea where he is. I hope that he's safe, and I hope to speak to him very soon.
In other words, he just made everything a hell of a lot worse, and that lawyer has nothing they can do other than say, I'm not assisting this guy in fleeing. Let's let TYT break it down.
Yikes, yeah, that definitely sounds foreboding. That was the lawyer to Roy McGrath. That's the one-time chief of staff for former Maryland GOP Governor Larry Hogan. And this is all coming after his failure to appear in court on an arrest warrant. Now, Baltimore and Washington, D.C. agents with the U.S. Marshal Service were assisting in executing that arrest warrant as McGrath stands accused of a variety of crimes, largely financial in nature, which include wire fraud, embezzlement, and allegations of falsifying a government document. McGrath is accused of receiving severance payment worth 1 year of his salary of his previous position, $233,648 as the head of Maryland Environmental Service, a quasi-governmental entity. McGrath is also accused of a failure to take vacation time while traveling to Florida and a European cruise. The falsifying documents charge stem from allegations that Hogan knew about McGrath's severance payment from the MES before moving to the governor's office and adding that Hogan signed off on the agreement. McGrath also faces state wiretapping violation charges for allegedly illegally recording phone calls. You know what? The man is really, he's got a rap sheet coming for him. And that seems to be the case, which is why, not showing up would kind of be problematic, especially when, you get that whole warrant thing. Anyways, but since news broke of McGrath's federal investigation and charges, Hogan has forcefully denied knowing anything about the severance agreement between McGrath and MES. And it really seems to indicate here that, again, these individuals have no respect for our system in any way, even when they were very much a part of it. Alonzo.
Well, he's just not a good criminal. I mean, the first thing you learn in crime, right? Crime is a cash business. You don't write checks. You don't collect checks. That there is a paper trail. You don't sign an authorization to pay a criminal by check.
At the low level, certainly. I do want to point out that was Trump's impression when he was talking to Michael Cohen. There's a recording of him. It's been played on the news recently in regards to the Stormy Daniels payment, where Cohen is talking about how they're going to arrange payment. And Trump goes, hey, what payment? We do cash. And then Cohen has to explain to him, well, look, people are going to be looking at your finances, and a $130,000 cash withdrawal will be seen as an attempt to cover this up. We want to cover this up in a different way. Yeah, criminal behavior. It's a criminal party.
Is a paper trail. These guys are just not very good at it. You know, if you're on a cruise, if you're on a trip where it's documented you're, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from the office, yeah, you got to put in vacation time, okay? You can't say you were working remotely from a cruise during it just. So what we have here is quite simply a bad criminal, a dumb criminal who's going to be arrested, who's going to go down on federal charges, and you have a governor trying to distance himself so he doesn't go down with him. And the note there is you shouldn't have signed the paper. The minute you sign something, you're going to be in trouble. All right, it's crime. Stick to cash. That's how crime works. Okay, you can't be Venmoing your fellow criminals.
Yeah, I mean, that's at this point. Do you even have to check which party it is? Do you even have to check? Is there any confusion when you see something like former politician flees from police? You know, right? You know what it's going to be. I still suggest checking the articles, but my God. This is another case of contacting your attorney, your state's attorney general. This is another case of contacting the Justice Department to tell them that you expect that these matters will be taken seriously now. Now, in this specific case, you don't have to do anything. The police are going to find this guy. He's not bright. Alonzo Bowden goes on to say in that clip, I guarantee you right now he's paying for a hotel room with a credit card in his name. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's about the level of criminal mastermind we're dealing with here. But look, it's the whole party is this. And they are this because we have allowed them to be this. We have allowed there to be a party where there is no consequence if you commit crime. So, of course, people that commit crime are going to pour in to that party. Why wouldn't they? It's gotten worse. I've been watching this for 20 years. It has gotten worse. And it got worse because Trump's presidency was basically an advertisement for how this party functions. It's up to us. The public needs to put pressure on the Justice Department to say, we're not going to put up with it anymore. Contact the Department of Justice, link in the description. Tell them that you expect charges filed for any crime that happens that the Justice Department is aware of or suspects. Charges are expected to be filed, no matter how powerful the person is. If you live in one of the fake elector states, they're listed in the description. I listed it at the end of last segment as well. Contact your state's attorney general. Tell them you want an investigation started in the fake elector case. What the hell? Let's rattle it off one more time. That's Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Yeah. Michigan and Georgia are already doing it.